Welcome. This is the Punk CX podcast. My name is Adrian Swinscoe, and I'm an advisor, best-selling author, Forbes contributor, and general explorer of the service and experience space. The thing I'm really interested in is how do we create organizations that produce better outcomes for both their customers and their people. This podcast has been running since January 2011, and so we have a big archive to explore. Check out the archive at adrianswinscoe.com. That's enough from me. Let's get into the interview. So welcome to the next edition of the Punk CX podcast. With me today, I have John Devlin, who is the founder and CEO of Ascensos. Now, before I kind of say hello to John, I just want to say I'm excited because it's not very often that I get a chance to showcase like a proper Scottish brogue on the podcast. So to a fellow Scot, John, welcome to the podcast. Nice to kind of have you on the show. How are you doing?
Is this a proper Scottish brogue? Is it?
There you go.
Does this count? I'm sure some of my family would say, no, that's an affected accent you've got there, John. That's not a Glaswegian accent at all. But delighted to be here, Adrian, after 3 months or so of trying to hook up with you. And yeah, I'm doing well today, thanks.
Good. And so John, we've been trying to get this in the diary, and it's been moving around for various kind of reasons on both our sides, sort of things, sort of shifting kind of calendar sands, as it were. But for the listeners that are not familiar with Ascensos and yourself, can you give us a bit of a thumbnail sketch about you and the work that you do?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, I'm John. I'm CEO, as you mentioned, of Ascensos. I've been in this customer care, customer service, CX industry, whatever you want to call it, for over 25 years now. And I live in Edinburgh with my wife, 2 daughters. I've got 2 sons as well who live elsewhere. And yeah, I run Ascensos, which is a BPO outsourcing customer care business, predominantly serving the retail sector and the consumer sectors. And we're based in Motherwell, just outside of Glasgow, but we now have operations on a global scale.
Nice. So I didn't know that you lived in Edinburgh, because that makes us neighbours as well, because I'm in Edinburgh too.
As I said, yeah, I'm Glaswegian at heart, but been in Edinburgh for a long time, which is why I've got a bit of a hybrid mongrel accent.
That's fair. And as you mentioned, that you've got your HQ, one of your biggest campuses in Motherwell. And I was recently there because there was a call center helper event that was run there. And I should say big thanks to Trevor Butterworth for organising that, and you kind of hosted it. But I wanted to understand is that you say you've been in this space for like 25 years. I wanted to understand sort of 2 things, a bit of a history lesson on Ascensos, but also kind of tell me about the name. It sounds kind of vaguely Greek or something. So I'm sure there's a story behind that.
Yeah, I used to get asked that often, and not much any longer. But yeah, I mean, it comes from Latin origins, ascenso, and that means to elevate in the same way as ascension or
right. Okay.
Ascend. It comes from the same origins. It just means to promote, to elevate. And we've got the subtext in our business to elevate your experience. So it all kind of hangs together nicely. Right. And it was one of those domain names that no one else had, ascensos.com, and we wanted a .com, so that's where we landed 10 years ago.
Very good. So I think now you can say you've been in the business for over 25 years, and you've seen a bunch of kind of different sort of changes, and also I think it's probably fair to say that the whole service experience BPO space is going through some big challenges in different kind of parts right now, whether that's to do with people or technology, kind of like economic pressures and stuff. So I wonder if you could give me your perspective of like how things have changed over the year. What's the same? What's different? What are the big sort of things that are kind of like in front of the BPO sort of space right now?
Well, looking at customer service or customer experience as a whole, I think attitudes have certainly changed. I think there's a much greater expectation on the customer side nowadays, for perfection, for excellence in service. And, I think that has emerged even more so in recent years, maybe even post-pandemic. Customers just have little acceptance of anything less than a very speedy response, an immediate response, and standards in that space, the expectations in that space are much higher. I think attitudes towards our industry, if we talk about outsourcing and BPO, have changed too. I mean, going back 25 years, you were almost embarrassed to say that you ran an outsourcing business, and very few people wanted a career in outsourcing. I think that has changed. Our clients no longer hide behind the fact that they outsource their activity. Some are very proud, to stand alongside the Sensos shoulder to shoulder and be very obvious partners of our business. And equally, I think there's far more interest in career opportunities within the BPO sector today than there would have been 20, 25 years ago. Certainly in the UK, it was a very emerging industry and a very emerging sector at that point in time. And it didn't really help, that the media were against it. They seen it as being low-paid work. They seen it as being jobs that were replacing the traditional heavy industry in Scotland, as an example. And the media there had, a negative lens that looked at the BPO and looked at outsourcing through. But I think today that attitude has changed. We get a lot of support from media. We get a lot of support from politicians and government in the UK, and I think people do respect the work that we do now.
And I think that's because I was speaking to other people in the sort of the outsourcing sort of like BPO sort of space, and I mean there was this research that I think it was one of the I think it was Deloitte's Global Contact Center survey earlier this year that said that most people were saying that they're set to grow their business with outsourcers over the coming kind of few years as they increasingly rely on them to deliver not just service and sort of experience, sort of like services, but like more. And are you seeing that sort of too, that actually that the outsourcing businesses, it's going to evolve and you'd be more from being just a purely we're outsourcing this service to somebody, but actually you develop into more of a partnership type of model where you're looking to bring in other things, and that can solve some of that talent retention and career path type of challenges that many of the operators face.
Most definitely, we're seeing an increase in the range of activities and the support services we provide to our clients, and get up the value chain as well, into providing more technology services, more data insights, analytics, more consolidation of different aspects of their front office activity, back office activity together. So I guess moving away from just being BPO into being a GBS, a global business services provider.
Right. Okay.
We're definitely seeing more consolidation into that space. Interestingly, what you say about the growth in the outsourcing sector. Again, a lot of the analysts are indicating that at the moment, that we can expect to see 20-25% growth in our sector over the next 3 years, which is great news for us, and not unsurprising when you look at the economic backdrop, that our clients, consumer brands, retail brands face at the moment, and the need for them to look at how we can access lower cost locations, access technology at a better price point, but also access it on a scalable basis and access it far quicker and more efficiently than they could do so themselves.
And so I know that, you've been in this space for a while, but you also so you alluded to the idea that you've got brands that are willing to sort of like stand kind of shoulder to shoulder with a Sensos and kind of be proud of what you're doing. Because I know that you also talk about you're an award-winning operator, and you talk with great pride. You take great pride to kind of talk about kind of how you take an entrepreneurial sort of approach. And forgive me, I want to understand a bit with that, because it's easy to say and they're like harder to deliver. So I wanted to kind of to understand, like, what does that mean? Take the different and entrepreneurial approach to tackle some of the kind of challenges, particularly around talent and recruitment and retention and delivery of quality, all these sort of things.
Yeah. Again, what I would say is I run a business, called the Sensos, and within that business, we run 30 different contact centers, for 30 different brands, and each one of those is unique, bespoke, and independent to one another. And that's a challenge in itself with running your own business, but also running customer operations on behalf of 30 other businesses too. But I think, agility and speed is essential, when you're looking at being an entrepreneurial business. You have to take risk, you have to move quickly, you have to be willing, to make some mistakes along the way. You have to be willing to kiss a few frogs, as they say, and, Ascensos is very like that. We're a very purpose-driven business. We're still independently owned, so we're not beholden to any external financial investors, etc. And that allows us, the scope, the flexibility to do what we think is right, and to serve the purpose that we think is right for our colleagues, for our clients, and for the communities in which we operate. And that gives my team, a great sense of meaning to their job, when they can actually be sure as to what their purpose is, and they're not changing direction every 3 months. They're not sure, whether the market conditions are in their favour or against us. So that independence is critical to us remaining as a challenger brand. Despite the fact that we've grown on a global basis, despite the fact that we now operate at the level we do operate at, we'll never change the fact that we are a challenger brand. That's deep within our DNA, certainly deep within my DNA and my attitude to how we operate. And I think it's reflected across our entire team now, that we see every opportunity as an opportunity for us to win. We see every opportunity in the market as one in which we can define ourselves, in which we can prove ourselves. And we're always proving ourselves, as a challenger to the very large organisations that exist in this sector. And that's been in our DNA from day one, and that challenger mentality will never change.
Yeah, and I also kind of having come and I've met some of your people and seen some of the offices across the kind of the Motherwell campus. I had the privilege and the delight to kind of meet Yvonne,
right.
Who has got the most.
I wonder if you're going with this one.
No. I mean, I don't know how many Yvonnes you've got, but like this is Yvonne that I met had the most wonderful job title. Yeah. It's called a chief happyologist.
Indeed. Yes,
and I just thought, blimey, that's brilliant. I mean, like, what a job. Does that mean you just get to dance around kind of the place? Or what is the one? Tell me about Yvonne, because I think I love those little things, right? It's like, because I think they're like, some of them are just like, I think they're interesting data points because they speak to kind of a broader cultural approach to something. So tell me about Yvonne and what the role that Yvonne plays.
I think you're right. Those kind of little quirky, even job titles, but more than that, the purpose of the job, you may not be able to deliver that kind of role and deliver the kind of contribution that Yvonne does in a PLC or a corporate environment. So again, that comes down to the kind of independent and disruptive approach that we have. But yeah, Yvonne's our chief happyologist. She's very happy at the moment. She's off to give birth as we speak.
Wow.
And I think any day soon she will be giving birth to a daughter. I know it's a daughter that's on the way. But yeah, I mean, Yvonne's been with us almost since the start. She hails from Merseyside. She came up here for love in the early days. She had a boyfriend who was based up near Glasgow, and she left a job with the Very Group where she ran their social media operations and joined us as a kind of fledgling organisation to run our social media for one of the very first clients that we had. So she was a great acquisition to our business. She came with a great attitude, a great positivity to life, and since then she's occupied various roles in the business. But chief happyologist we put in place at the start of the pandemic, when we had to make that exodus to home, and we wanted to maintain the kind of culture and the kind of engagement that we had with our colleagues, despite the fact that very few of them, if any, at that point were in the office. So we kind of moved Yvonne across into that role. We set up something called the Sensos TV on our own YouTube channel, and Yvonne is the host and the owner of that YouTube channel, and delivers our colleague engagement remotely and on premise now too. So it was a role that was the result of the pandemic, but it's stuck since then. And she does it very well. And as you rightly say, she's a character in the office.
Yeah, no, she's brilliant. And I just think I just wanted to kind of because she's like off now and she's just about to give birth. I think she may actually have given birth by the time this kind of goes out. So I was just going to we would give her a big wave and like a big, even though it's an audio recording, like big wave and best wishes to kind of both to Yvonne and kind of the child, and hope everything is kind of going really, really well. Best wishes to all.
Thank you. We'll make sure we pass it on, and I'm sure she'll listen to the podcast in due course as well. But I think everything's going well, and she keeps in touch, and she'll come back and say to me, she'll say, "Did you look after the place for my gaffer?" I'm sure she'll say something like that, because that's the kind of attitude that she's got.
Well, that's it. It's almost like, this is my flock. You look after them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love all that. But she's a great champion within our team.
Yeah, and one of the other things, because I was, we were talking about before. I mean, and this is kind of what I wanted to. I know this is again these little things I think that are, interesting, just like brilliant sort of little initiatives sort of thing. And I wanted to ask you about the Ascensos local initiative that you've kind of like started, because, and how that speaks to sort of like the growth and evolution of the outsourcing business, particularly in kind of locally, but also across kind of geographies and stuff. And I thought that's a really interesting thing, because a lot of times people kind of start things and then go for scale, but this is almost a bit like you've gone the other way on it. So I wonder if you can tell me a little bit about that, because I think it's just a really interesting, more distributed model that leverages technology and infrastructure in a sort of different way to allow to reach. It's like a Carlsberg sort of thing, reach the parts that other beers can't reach sort of thing.
I love it. Yeah, I'll take that. You're right. I mean, again, as a result of the pandemic, people were working from home. We had to find a way in which we could grow our model, our operating model through a work at home basis. I wasn't keen on a fully work at home team, and one that would be distributed to all four corners of the UK at that point in time. I wanted connection with any of our work at home colleagues. And bear in mind, most of them had been office based, and we had sent them to home. So they were local to our offices anyway. Mm-hmm. But when we had to scale up in the summer of 2021, we had to look at ways in which we could do that while still being in the heat in the midst of the pandemic. And I wasn't really keen to have someone based in Aberdeen or based in Plymouth or based in Cardiff, that didn't have any connection to a local Sensos office. So what we decided to do, which I think was pretty unique at the time, was to take our model into peripheral towns, maybe towns that were underserved in the digital economy, maybe towns that didn't have many kind of jobs in contact centre operations, or even in kind of small to medium-sized office operations, and have town centre hubs. So revamp, maybe some town centre locations that were dilapidated or closed, bring those locations back to life, use that location right in the heart of the town and the town centre itself as a recruitment hub, an onboarding hub, a training hub, and a collaboration hub for work at home teams. Mm-hmm. We'll still have the guys working at home, but have the ability for them to come in and touch and feel and have a tangible link to the Sensos estate and the Sensos culture within that town centre office. So we've done that initially in Stranraer. I thought, where is the most remote place I could possibly think of in Scotland? And I mean, Stranraer is pretty far flung from
and
no matter
pretty hard
where
to get to.
Pretty hard to get to. I said, if it can work in Stranraer, it can work anywhere. So we opened our first Stranraer office, I first Census local office, in Stranraer very quickly in the summer of 2021. We grew that to have 100 or so work at home employees who are all within a kind of 20-mile radius of Stranraer, and using that town centre hub. So we took on an old Halifax Building Society office that had been sitting vacant, and refurbed it, brought it back to life, brought some footfall back into the town centre itself. So part of that town centre regeneration that you would like to see in towns like Stranraer, and it was very successful. And we've got some of our very best employees there. Very low attrition, great engagement, great connection with our business, and very proud of what they delivered for a census in that Stranraer location. We opened a second one in Lisbon in Northern Ireland, and we now have a plan to do that not only in the UK, but to do it in other locations across the world too. We still have smaller offices with that distributed work at home model, as you say, but still have that really important connection that I find back into the business. I really don't want to be a pure play work from home business, that has no real connection with the individual, and the individual has no connection with their manager or with their colleagues, or with the business as a whole.
Yeah. No, I just thank you for that. I just wanted to sort of explore that and highlight it, because I just think it's a really neat thing in that, rather than I think the pandemic made many people make different choices and evaluated kind of what they want to do and where they want to live and all these different sort of things. And actually, rather than work has always been, as you're right, so that you can work from anywhere with the technology as it is kind of right now, but actually you want to make sure you don't lose that kind of actual connection. And with people moving around, you're almost like moving things to people, that sort of the reach with the connection, as it were. And it can also do that sort of, they're also the really positive thing is that you can take opportunity and growth and development to areas that are possibly forgotten or underserved, and so on and so forth. And I think that's just a really positive. It's like a win sort of thing. So it feels great.
You're absolutely right, and we had a bit of a model for that previously. We opened up in Isle of Wight, just across the Solent in 2017, and albeit that was a larger footprint office, with 400 seats, it was still the same idea to take contact centre jobs to a location that didn't have a tradition or a history of delivering jobs in this sector. And a lot of people raised an eyebrow in our industry when I launched in the Isle of Wight, that why the Isle of Wight, but for the very same reasons. They had lots of talent locally there, who couldn't access jobs just because of how remote it was from the mainland. And we took the jobs to that location, very successful. And 7 years later, we're still operating with a lot of our original team in Isle of Wight. So it serves the purpose of tenure, engagement, and building that level of knowledge retention that we crave and our clients crave too.
Yeah, no, I think it's brilliant, and I think I'd love to see more people kind of do that. It's almost like go to seek out the talent. They don't just expect the talent to come to you, sort of thing, but actually seek it out, because there's talent all over the place and people that are keen to work and to work in meaningful and do meaningful kind of jobs, and it sort of swims against the tide a little bit. So I think that's a really fantastic kind of initiative, and so long may it continue. But also kind of speaks to that sort of whole sort of thing around, we talked about the kind of the evolution of the contact center and how more and more clients are asking you to do more and more things up and down the kind of the value kind of chain. And it's like, I guess it just spreads out the opportunity. And I think that's that's kind of great. But what I wanted to move on to right now was to kind of to talk about, the big wave that has been the story of 2020 sort of emerging late 2022, kind of like Chat GPT exploded onto the scene. And then everybody has been doing their best to figure out what they can do with kind of generative AI. And it's been the massive story of the year. I mean, so how is it affecting the outsourcing business? And And is it affecting it right now, or is it just like, we're just thinking about it, or how will it affect it going forward?
The first thing I would say is that our business and our industry has been using technology extremely well and embracing it, for a number of years, and there's a misnomer out there, that it's all about labour, and creating, just large scale contact center operations with thousands of seats. I don't think that's the case. We've always had technology alongside the human talent we have in our business, and that has evolved a lot in the 25 years or so that I've been around. Certainly, AI, we've been using for 4 or 5 years now, behind the scenes, to make life better for advisors, to do some of the heavy lifting, more the transactional pieces that advisors have to do, and allowing advisors to focus more on great customer experience, good customer outcomes. But I guess Gen AI did kind of come to the fore a year ago or so, and was a huge talking point at our industry at the start of 2023. It's yet to have an impact, but I certainly don't have my head in the sand that it won't have an impact, but it's yet to have an impact. But you can see the direction of travel there.
Sure.
That we all use ChatGPT, playing around with it in our business. Our tech team, our software development team are, I guess, doing a bit more than playing around with it. We've launched a Sensort Intelligence, which is how we are bringing all aspects of AI together with our own proprietary IT, with some of our clients' IT, with some of our third-party IT that we hook into under the auspice of a Sensort Intelligence now. And, generative AI and ChatGPT or other large language models will feature within that as well.
Sure.
But today, I think it's just creating uncertainty, Adrian. I think, from a market perspective, if I look at the market through the optics of investors, buyers, shareholders, then Gen AI probably creates uncertainty that investors don't like.
Yeah.
Because you can't really sufficiently give them an answer as to how the impact will land in our industry. Will it replace 50% of the human labour? Will it replace 5% of the human labour? That's still to be determined, but certainly it will have an impact, and we've got eyes wide open in that. We are embracing it. We're engaging with it. Our agents are working with AI in a co-pilot mode at the moment to support what they're doing. And I'm sure, over the next year to 3 years, we'll see more Gen AI making an impact as we go. But it's uncertainty at the moment rather than any direct impact.
Yeah, no, I think that's that. I mean, thank you for that. I think that's probably that's obviously fair, but also it's very real as well, because there's all this kind of talk. It's like, it's going to replace kind of like 50% or 60% or 80% of kind of people, and you're like going, I'm sorry, didn't people say that about chatbots kind of about 4 or 5 years ago?
Well, I agree with you. It's all going to come down to effective deployment, isn't it, and effective integration. Again, that's where we want to excel. Is we're never going to build our own large language models. We're never going to be able, to actually have that capability. And why would you? The Microsofts, the IBMs of this world, the Googles of this world are going to be able to do that.
Sure.
We will work to integrate that into our existing service delivery models, alongside human talent as well. Yeah. But I'm sure it'll have an impact by reducing, processing times, transaction times, reducing handle time, but then it reduces labour. Of course it does, So I think we need to embrace that. We need to accept that, that as other industries do, as other sectors do, it isn't just customer service or CX or BPO will be affected by Gen AI. I think even some of the very high-end professional services like lawyers and financial services and accountants will be affected by
Sure.
Gen AI too. So uncertainty is what I would say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think it's as you say, it will it will improve some productivity, have some productivity and efficiency sort of improvements, which might, and then it may actually also, and rapidly increase some of the self-service capabilities, which will have an impact potentially on headcount. But as we said earlier, the whole space is evolving, and more clients are asking for different types of kind of like services and higher value add services, whether it might be kind of like social or cyber or data analytics or kind of whatever it might be. And so you kind of almost a bit like you're going to evolve kind of with kind of them, and almost think about. I mean, it's a tool, right? That's the thing, is that and it's a tool that's there in service of, in the particular space, in service of driving those better outcomes. Will it make those be responsible for delivering better outcomes on their own? No, because that has to be designed and then and effectively implemented in order to do that. And a lot of times it will have to be done in concert with a skilled, enabled, and supported kind of human being.
And I'm still certain, that our clients will turn to us, to deliver it for them, because
Sure.
It is that combination of humans and the other technologies that we deliver today anyway. It can't be delivered in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you want to deliver, a Gen AI solution completely autonomously from all the other technology solutions that exist within your CX environment? So our clients will, and they are turning to us, to say, well, how can you help us deliver Gen AI into our wider customer proposition?
And that for me, that makes sense, because it almost feels like it's like people are going to start to double down on a core competency sort of model of business. So if you're like a retailer, like grocery retailer or a fashion retailer, they go like, well, why don't we just concentrate on doing that and being great at that? And then we've got people that are specialists in support and service and back office and things, and that's their thing. And you've got scale that you can leverage and learn from, that you can apply to all these different sort of brands. And that sort of makes sense in this ever evolving, fast evolving sort of like space.
Agreed.
So, talked about Ascensos. This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where I ask you to tell me, give me a couple of kind of client examples that sort of illustrate a little bit like of the approach that Ascensos take, and so to bring that sort of difference to life, if you can. If you know what I mean. So do you have a couple of client examples that you can share that brings your approach, to life, in terms of like what you did, what challenges they were facing, how you approached it, and kind of what happened?
Yeah, and so I've got to be careful not to share too much secret sauce in this, and any client confidentiality, etc. But one example that springs to mind is we work with Wix, the home improvement retailer, and we do a lot with them in terms of their kitchen bathroom installation operations, and that's a complex business,
mm-hmm.
Complex from a delivery perspective, complex from an operational perspective, complex from a customer perspective, and very emotive. Buying a £15,000, £20,000 kitchen, £10,000 bathroom, and the upset that causes in your house. It's a big decision. You don't do that every day. It's not a frequent purchase. So there's lots of opportunity for error in it. You've got lots of moving parts. You've got tradesmen, you've got materials come in direct from supplier, you've got materials come in from Wix on stock, you've got electricians, plumbers, joiners, there's a lot going on in that environment, So customer referrals, customer recommendations, Trustpilot scores are hugely important, and as is avoiding cost of failure, because cost of remedy in that space can be very high.
Sure.
So we've been working with Wix for years, and we got together with their board, their leadership team, after they came out of a demerger from Travis Perkins Group, about how we could really accelerate, the Wix profile, Wix brand, and increase their market share, in that kitchen and bathroom market. And we've been working with them now on that project for about 2 years of delivering, an industry-leading customer experience centre, for kitchen and bathroom customers, that our advisors, have a much better access to technology that pulls all the inputs together, from all the different sources of materials, different sources of design consulting drawings of what the bathroom or the kitchen installation should look like. The tradesmen themselves who are carrying out the installation activity. All of that information is pulled into a single point of reference for our advisors. That our software development team built, from scratch, a bespoke build out on a Genesis platform for Wix, and we upscaled the training of the team, to be case owners, for cradle to grave, to hold the hand of that customer through all parts of that journey. And really, it's a white glove service we offer to Wix through that process. That project took a long time, both in terms of definition, scope, and then development of the software application, but also the upskilling and the capability of the team to act, as that concierge white glove service. And we're now kind of 6 months into live operations in that customer experience centre, and we've seen a marked drop off in escalation complaints, a marked drop off in repeat visits by tradesmen to customers' premises, a reduction in cost of failure, and an improving trajectory on Trustpilot too. So hitting all the metrics you'd want to hit in that space.
Nice.
But also doing the right thing for the customer.
Yeah.
If I was buying in the market to buy a £20,000 kitchen or more, I would want someone who looks after me through that whole journey. I would want someone who takes care of me, and the same person I can get back in touch with, to take care of me through that entire journey. Because it is emotive, and families can't do without kitchens. You can't really say, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go another week without your gas hob or your fridge freezer being operating. So it's a really emotive purchase and a big ticket price point as well. So brands need to get that right, and Wix, embrace that. Say, yeah, we want to stand out from that market. And it is a market traditionally it was delivering relatively average service across that entire market. If you look at all the competition in that space too, and Wix really want to elevate and evolve themselves out of the pack, and be at the head of the kind of peloton. And they are leading that space and have invested in it significantly. And we worked in collaboration with them to deliver what I see as a world-class operation.
Nice. I love the idea that rather than it's a case that gets passed around people depending on who's on the phones, kind of like, or who's kind of like on it as a time, is that you actually get a named contact. It's almost like it's your own personal account manager, as it were.
And from day one, we don't wait on, there being a customer service inquiry. So as soon as the kitchen installation is agreed with the customer, and it's the date is locked in for installation, we proactively contact the customer at that point to say, I'm John, I'll be your advisor through this whole process. This is how you get in touch with me.
Right.
If I'm not around because, I've got a holiday or it's my shift day off, then this is my colleague who will take care of you during that point in time as well.
Right.
So it's a holistic approach to it, and the customer acceptance of it has been magnificent, actually.
Yeah, and I can imagine, and so just kind of like it just ticks so many different boxes. Obviously, that it's the scope to kind of do that when you're dealing with something which is like a significant and very considered kind of purchase, and that sort of care kind of is important in that. But I just love the idea that you go, if you're going to do it, you go like, I'm going to call John. I've got a question. It's like, rather than just kind of call a queue sort of thing, or kind of wait to speak to somebody else and like, wait, excuse me, while I pull up your record sort of thing. And you're like going, no, speak to John. And John goes, hey, Adrian, how you doing?
Yeah, and our knowledge of it is so personal at that point in time, so involved at that point in time that they know exactly where the customer is on that journey. Always worth saying, that these things are never perfect, but I think, with every project of this nature, identifying, where you want to get to is the first step in the journey, and I think we're very firmly well into that path at the moment.
I love what you just said, because I think that's a really important point, and it's something that I kind of bemoan a lot. In that, I often think that most people haven't really figured out where they want to get to. They kind of have these platitudinal descriptions about what they want to deliver, sort of thing, but they actually don't really have a clear idea of where they want to get to and how they want it to be, as it were, for both the customer and the agent, and and all the different sort of suppliers and stuff. And so they don't know where they can't really track their progress to their destination, because they don't have a fixed idea where their destination is. But it sounds to me like you're like going, yeah, we're there. Well, we're sort of getting there. We're almost there, but we know exactly where we need to get to and what we need to do in order to improve that. And it's like never going to be perfect, but we know exactly where we're getting to. And so that just kind of intimates to me that you've got this clear, high definition picture of what we want to do and where we want to be, which I don't hear about very often. So I salute you for that.
And the byproduct of it is, unsurprisingly, what do we have as well? We have much higher engaged advisors, who feel as if they've got a more meaningful job.
Yeah.
They can actually fix things. They can actually resolve things. They're not passing it from pillar to post, from department to department, and giving the customer the brush off or the cold shoulder. So we've now got advisors who love their work better,
right.
Hire more. They get paid better as well, because it's a higher skill set. And they, for me, I now have a team who have got almost zero attrition, very
nice,
very little absence, and when I look at what we do, a weekly ESAT survey, with our guys, and if I go back 10 years, Adrian, you'd get the kind of tea and toilets type feedback, about we need more of this and less of that. That Wix CEC team give us feedback about process design, about how we can make the process better for the customer and for them, how we can design the desktop easier, so they can manipulate the information quicker and more readily, and less of the tea and toilets and more about genuine business improvement.
Nice, because then that's proper engagement, right? It's just it's like they're valued, they're interested, they're rewarded. All of the all good things.
They're treated as professionals. They're treated as adults, not as frontline cannon fodder in a traditional contact centre. They're treated as a professional job. Exactly.
Nice, fantastic. I love that story. I must make a mental note about it if we're going to buy a kitchen. Kind of like next, I'll mention it to my wife.
Speak to John.
Speak to John. Speak to John about Wix. Brilliant. So on all this kind of like stuff, I mean, that's great. And it's great. And I also I should congratulate you, because you just had a big announcement yesterday. I know you had them before, but you've kind of waited a long time, but you just acquired them back. So a big shout out to yourself and the team there for reacquiring John Lewis as a brand. And I'm pretty sure you're probably going to be taking the similar sort of approach to them in terms of figuring out how do you deliver a service that is enhances and maintains the John Lewis kind of brand. So fair play to that, because they are they're a big logo in that whole service and experience sort of space, particularly in the UK.
No, we're really proud, to be partnering with John Lewis again. We partnered with him with my previous business, Be Cogent, 20 years ago, and it feels like we are coming back on an unfinished journey with them. And they are a great brand, and we want to take them to even higher heights. So really proud to partner with them. Yeah.
Awesome. So what's the John? What's the future for for Census, I mean, probably short of world domination, but still independent. So
that's never going to happen.
Still retaining an independent and kind of like slightly entrepreneurial kind of like edge to it all.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the objective, and I guess that's the complexity for me is how do you maintain, a fast scaling global business, but retain that independence, that entrepreneurism, that sense of challenger brand mentality within the business. But that's the game for me, is to make sure we continue to operate in that space. I'm pretty confident we can do it. Everyone always says, yeah, but that's a trick. How do you maintain your amazing culture, when you now operate across 5 different countries and 3 or 4 continents now? And but yeah, I think we can do it. I've not seen any sign we can't do it. We know what great looks like. We're pretty self-aware. We're comfortable in our own skin as a team and as a business, and I think that's important. We've got massive degrees of loyalty in our business. At all levels, and that carries you through some difficult times as well. We don't get everything right. We never will get everything right. When you are a risk taker and you're entrepreneurial, you are going to make these mistakes, as I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But no one loses their job for making mistakes, in a sense. We're a business that encourages risk taking, a business that encourages people to think creatively and think out the box, and that will be what takes us forward, for the business itself. We've got a very fast growing operation in South Africa now. And, most of my conversations to some degree involve the benefit of working out of South Africa. And there are huge benefits of service delivery from Cape Town.
Yeah.
Equally, we've got an emerging operation in Trinidad, which is in its infancy, but I've got big hopes for that too, of how we can service the North American market through a near shore Americas location there. So those are big objectives for us over the next year or so.
Fantastic. Now, on to slightly different things. I also understand that you're a massive football fan. And given that,
so slightly,
and given that, and I know we wanted to do this a little bit earlier, but we've been moving around for the last kind of 3 months. Wanted to ask you, who's your team and how are they getting on?
Okay, it's that classic Scottish question of who's your team.
Well, I don't really have. I mean, I'll tell you that I don't really have a first team in Scotland, although I historically would support Celtic, and only because when I grew up in the Borders, my dad took me to watch Leithen Rovers play Celtic reserves as like a pre-season kind of game, and Tommy Burns in his pristine green and white kind of like hooped kind of like top and white shorts and his shock of red hair was tearing a strip off everybody up and down the park, and I went, he's brilliant, I'll support them. Who are they?
He's my kind of guy.
Celtic. Yeah. And so I've had a soft spot for Celtic only because of that, not for any other reason. But up until last year, I was a season ticket holder for about 10 years at Brighton and Hove Albion.
Okay, who are doing very well at the moment, as it happens.
Yes.
And a great result at Ajax. But like you, I mean, I grew up in the kind of greater Glasgow area, and my team from a very young age was Celtic. So it still is my team. Okay. You can never change that. I do have a second team as well. Albion Rovers. Who are from Coatbridge,
right?
Which is in my neighbourhood when I was a kid. And I eventually became a director at Albion Rovers through a sponsorship program we had, and then ultimately became chairman at Albion Rovers as well. And both their teams, I hold close to my heart. In terms of how they're doing or what their prospects are, they're obviously at completely opposite ends of the scale in terms of capability, financial position, and where the league position is too. Celtic are doing well in Scotland, top of the league, and have got a kind of strong start to the season with a new manager, an old returning manager in Brendan Rodgers, but struggling really badly in Europe because There's that dichotomy of doing well in Scotland, but transferring that into European results. And I think most Scottish teams struggle with that. And then Albion Rovers, I'm afraid to say, were relegated at the end of last season out of the senior league in Scotland, are now playing one of the non-leagues, or it's called the Lowland League in Scotland, which is the fifth tier in Scottish football, and are trying to find their feet in a strange environment.
Right.
But I'm confident, that the guys I know there, and they've got a great support that they'll pull through. They're a very traditional, small, low league team in Scotland, but they've got a core group of hardened supporters that will carry them through the bad times, I would guess.
Well, Brighton fans will know kind of the bad times. They've kind of gone through it before, and they're kind of quite, people that kind of talk about Brighton now because they've just become that sort of thing around their not the talk of the Premier League, but they're kind of like, their story is kind of interesting, and how kind of like only a number of years ago that they were playing at 70 miles away, kind of in Kent, at a borrowed kind of ground, because they didn't have their own ground, and they were kind of almost falling out of the bottom end of English kind of football. But their story has been kind of brilliant, and they're playing exciting football, and it's all good.
Well, I think that's the thing. I think that's the thing, that you can't really expect Brighton to have too much success in terms of silverware, but they play exciting football. They're good to watch. Fans enjoy it, and even to have those occasional moments of beating Man City or Liverpool or even Ajax last night, then fair play to them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, best of luck to Celtic, and also to
Albion Rovers.
Sorry, yes. And hopefully they kind of like, they have a great, particularly Albion Rovers, hopefully they have a great season and get kind of promoted back up into the senior leagues. But so, John, that was a little slightly aside, but is there anything else that you want to add, particularly around about kind of a Sensos and kind of future plans that we haven't kind of covered, before I ask you kind of a couple other kind of wrap-up questions?
I don't think so, Adrian. I think we've covered it. I'm not going to get into a big sales pitch about a Sensos, but I think I've sufficiently described who we are and what we do.
Perfect. So let me kind of, I always ask this question when I have people on the podcast, just to kind of get people to break it down a little bit, and also just try and leverage people's kind of expertise and experience. And so, John, if I would say to you, like, if there was one thing that you would say to anybody who wants to sort of improve their sort of customer service or their customer sort of experience, and you said, John Devlin says, do this, what would that be?
Great question. I've only had all the answers to that. You know what? Let's keep it simple, because it's not rocket science, is it? I think you have to treat people well. And if that's customers or colleagues. But the one thing I would say to any leader in our business is get close to it, understand the customer interactions, understand the customer conversations, understand the customer journeys, have close proximity to what happens, between the advisor and the customer, understand the processes, listen to calls. There's so many people who don't actually listen to calls or sit side by side with an advisor and see what they do. I do that still, and my leadership team do it. We meet once a month, have a 3-hour session, and we just randomly listen to calls, not to criticize, but to critique, and to understand, what I think and we think world class looks like, and what the essential standards should look and sound like, but also then to dissect and pull apart processes. It's so frustrating sometimes, when people have processes that are there and nobody challenges it. People say, well, that's the process. As a disruptor and as a challenger brand, my question is to everyone is find a way to work around that process to make it slicker, make it easier, take the effort out for the advisor, take the effort out for the customer, and we reward people when they find ways to circumvent process. We actually creatively award people reward people, sorry, for finding ways that they can bypass process. I think process can kill creativity. It can suffocate individual ability, and people can hide behind it so easily. So my message to anyone would get close to your customer interactions, listen to calls, sit side by side with your advisors, and look for all the stupid things that you do to your customers.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Perfect. Great advice. So a couple of quick questions to finish on. And these ones are, the first ones are about the sort of related to the punk books that I wrote. Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that you might be familiar with the punk scene.
Yes.
I'm just kind of like saying. And so the first book, kind of the Punk CX book, was built on this idea that, punk rock explored progressive rock in the 1970s. And I was frustrated with the state of customer experience and how there's all this activity and enthusiasm, but it's all becoming a little bit too and overly complicated and a little bit self-indulgent, a bit like prog rock in the 1970s. And I said, I wish somebody would do something a bit more punk to try and move the needle a little bit. And so what I've been doing over the last kind of couple of years is asking people to do this word association game with me. And so if I said to you, pick one or two words that you would use to describe a punk approach to customer experience, what would it do? Now, the warning on this is I've been collecting these for the last couple of years, and I've got 195 different words and phrases. I'm going to stop when I get to 200. So that just sets the scene. Give me a word or a couple of words that you would use to describe a more punk approach to customer experience.
Well, punk for me, if I think of it in terms of the genre of music or fashion or that period of the world that existed, was all about independence, and authenticity. I would think being authentic and being independent. You've probably got those already.
Yeah, I've got them already. I tell you what, let me give you kind of this. Probably shouldn't do this, but I would say if you can pick a Scots word, something that's a bit more colloquial to describe that sort of kind of thing. Right.
A Scots word
that it's almost certainly going to be on the list. Not on the list, sorry.
A Scots word that. I was really into the Jam,
right? Okay.
And the Jam started as a out of the punk scene, but we're very kind of mod influenced, the new wave, and Paul Weller was my hero, still a hero of mine. And Paul had an attitude, and in Scots terms, Paul would be gallus.
Ah, pure gallus,
pure dead gallus.
That's not on. I promise you, that's not on the list, and it's totally going on the list because that completely gets it. And also, when I put that up in front of people, and they'll go like, "What the heck's that?"
You don't even know what it means.
I'll pure dead gallus and be like, "What's that?" Okay, right, fine. You need to call John Devlin. He'll explain exactly what that is.
Or watch Paul Weller singing in the City in 1977. You'll see what gallus epitomizes on stage.
Fantastic. That is class. Right. So, second one is there was a follow-up book which was called Punk XL, and XL stands for Experience Leadership, because it felt kind of odd to me that, well...
Sorry, my dog's barking if you can hear it, but maybe not too bad.
No, that's fine. So XL is about this idea that it's been no longer sufficient to talk about customer experience in isolation, and we have to talk about things in kind of holistic terms, so in terms of it's both customers and kind of employees and stakeholders, the whole sort of shoot match. What it struck me as being odd was the idea that we talk about brand leadership, we talk about technical leadership, we talk about kind of financial leadership, we talk about all these different types of things, but we don't talk about experienced leadership, given that we're all supposed to be competing on experience. And I thought, that's interesting. So explored that in a book. And so I've been asking people, what company or brand do you think is an experienced leader? Like, who's setting the bar and why?
Oh, great question. And you know what? That's a toughie. And if there's all the names that, things like the customer service index or customer CSI, UK CSI, kind of plough out almost Perth Direct and all that kind of stuff. And I think they're all so overplayed, because I think their service is good, but not brilliant, and certainly not from a leadership perspective. I think in terms of great brands that deliver great customer service, you get the ones that kind of niche businesses that are small and they deliver something with passion. They deliver something, that they really believe in, so they do it really, really well, and they really care about it, to the nth degree. But they're very niche, and how scalable and how effective that is, in a much larger business is tough. And then you get the other end of the scale, the businesses deliver great customer experience because they can afford to, because they're selling a £20,000 handbag or a Prada experience. So you either get luxury and it comes at a price point, or you get niche that isn't scalable. And I think in the middle, it's pretty poor actually.
Right.
And it doesn't really inspire me. But if I had to think of anyone who people would recognise as a brand, and why, there's two. Then I think Pets at Home is a great brand. I've got a dog, and Pets at Home are great, in terms of the in-store experience, but also the online experience that replicates that. But then their kind of loyalty reward scheme that hooks you into the brand even deeper, and they allow you to take your dog into the store as well, which is great. And you get into a store and the dogs all socialise. I think it probably comes from the same place that I started with. They've got a passion for it, but they've been able to scale now into a proper business. And they've dealt with things like the pandemic, when there was an explosion of people, getting pets and dogs. They've dealt with that. It served them well, but they haven't lost their purpose through that period either. They're still as good now as they were before the pandemic, and I think that's great. Another one I would mention, that we don't operate in this space, in the automotive space at all. So I can mention with kind of impunity, but it might surprise people, that the best car dealerships I've been with. My daughter passed it when she was 18, and she passed her test. Then she got her little first car, little Toyota Aygo thing. And Toyota's customer service is remarkable, for a brand that the price point is middle of the road, banging that kind of average brand perspective, in terms of price point, etc. But they deliver a superlative experience, much better than you get from the kind of premium German brands, etc. And again, both in store and online, super experience, and they do something amazing as well that no one else has done yet. Is they give you as long as you get your car serviced at Toyota once a year, they give you a Toyota warranty that goes with it for up to 10 years. And I just think that kind of tells a lot about their confidence in their product, confidence in their service, confidence in their business. They're willing to do that. So, yeah, I'm not a Toyota driver, but I've experienced their service, and it's impeccable, actually.
Fantastic. What a great example. And not one I've been shared with before, but I have a lot of admiration for what some of the things that Toyota have done over the years and how they've made.
Well, it's no surprise really when you think of, their approach historically, to Kaizen and Six Sigma and all that stuff. Total quality has always been part of that industry in Japan, but I think it's demonstrated right through to the people you meet at the front desk in the franchise.
Fantastic. What great example. Right. So one final question before we wrap up. And don't know if you're like me, but particularly, ever since the pandemic, I seem to be constantly doom scrolling every morning over my first cup of coffee. And so trying to get away from that, I'm trying to ask people to share with me kind of a good news story. Kind of like, so what's the most interesting, positive or exciting thing that you've seen in the last week, John?
My God, the questions just get tougher. You're right. We're surrounded by negativity no matter where we look at the moment. You've nailed that. Listen, this is a bit flippant, and I'm maybe playing to
the smallest things, the smallest glint of light in the doom and the gloom.
I'm maybe playing explain to one of my clients, and John Lewis, but I don't know if you've seen the John Lewis Christmas advert yet.
No.
But it is joyous. And there's a reason it's joyous, and I won't spoil it for you. But it's unexpected, it's creative, and I think it's life affirming as well, and it did make me smile. And when I seen it for the first time the other evening, as you say, against a backdrop of doom and gloom, no matter where you look in the world at the moment, it just made me feel human again. And I looked around to my family, and they all had a smile on their face as well. And I think it was a nice sentiment.
Fantastic. What a way to kind of end. And given that this will go out definitely pre-Christmas, actually, we kind of should go live towards the end of November, just in time for people to kind of look that up and check it out itself. So thank you for that. So John, finally, just want to say thank you. We've nailed it after 3 months of kind of like shifting around and missing each other and rescheduling stuff. We've nailed it. We've done it. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for sharing your time, your experience, your insight, and all that kind of with me today. It's been brilliant.
Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate it.
Wow, what a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Find out more about me and the work that I do at adrianswinscoe.com. Do leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions about the podcast, then feel free to send me a message to podcast@adrianswinscoe.com. Do tune in again. Thanks very much.